Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Got a treat today. This one actually looks like it's in nice condition. This is an older one. This is the Penn DelMar. It's the 285 reel. It's very similar in nature and design and mechanics to the Penn Long Beach series. It has the plastic or the Bakelite spool. It obviously has been sitting in some dirt and shed or something for a while because there's an awful lot of dirt on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this apart. We're going to show you how to service this. We'll show you how it's made. And we're going to clean it up and get it back out there fishing again. So while we're doing that, I'd like to start by taking the external pieces and parts off. I'll tell you that I wear a protective glove on my hand to keep the chemicals and dirt and junk off of it. And I also use a parts tray. So those might be helpful to you if you're doing this for the first time or if you've done it for a while and are just looking for a helpful hint. While we're doing this as well, I'd like to thank our first responders, our emergency personnel, our frontline workers, and everybody who's involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic, whether it's police, fire, medical, nursing homes, long care term facilities, supply chain personnel like truckers and store attendants and so on. Thank you for all it is that you do. We'd be in a lot worse shape without you. So really appreciate that. So I'm taking the screws off of the gear side plate, and that side plate has two different size screws. It has a long screw for the cross post, which you'll see I just laid one of them on my table, and it has a short screw, there's actually two of them, for the reel seat. And you'll notice that there's a difference in the size. And when you go to reinstall, make sure that the short ones go below and that the longer ones stay up top for that cross post. So we're going to take these out. I'm going to pull the gear side plate. And a lot of dirt on the inside of this one too. That's kind of interesting because it's usually sealed pretty well. We'll take the spool off. And because this thing is so dirty, I'm just going to remove these. And I'll do a little polishing on the cross post to get that dirt off of there, and we'll do a little wipe down of these side plates as well. So the Penn reels in the 1960s and 70s, which is this is part of that era, even though some of those predate that, they go into the 50s, kind of had a good, better, best strategy. And the first reel up was the Penn 85. This one with the plastic spool is very similar to the 85. And then you had the 285, which that's this one. And most of the time that was differentiated because it had a metal spool. And it also had better chroming on the metal pieces. And then you had the Penn 60 or Long Beach series. The 60 would be the same size frame as the 285 and the 85. The 65 would have a wider spool. But those two were kind of the upper end. They had metal trim rings and shared a lot of the internal components with both of these series. I'm just going to put those two back on here. And many of you have seen me use this before, and it's one of the reasons why I have the glove on my hand. But we're going to use a chrome polish. It's an automotive chrome polish. It's turtle wax. Give it a little bit of a shake, and that'll clean this chrome right up. So sometimes if you're looking for cleaners, it doesn't have to be the fishing reel cleaners, although there's some good ones out there. There's, among other things, there's this one, which is a Penn rod and reel cleaner. And we've also talked about Flitz, which is a metal cleaner that does very nicely on these. It's a cleaner and a polish. But when I get something like this with the pitting, I generally will use that automotive cleaner, which I think was probably designed for car bumpers when car bumpers used to be chrome. All right, so just getting that off, and there's a little bit of grit in this chrome cleaner, and that's good because that's taking the dirt and the light salting on this reel and taking that off. So this reel was made for ocean, inshore ocean and deep lake fishing. It's not a good casting reel, but it is a good drop fishing reel, and it can also be used for trolling. You would normally use 10 to 20 pound line on it. and I would say 15 line was probably ideal, and you probably would get about 250 yards worth of capacity out of this. So it was pretty substantial in terms of the capacities and the strength and what kind of fish you could go for. And like I said, back in the 60s for sure, it would be hard to find yourself on a fishing boat and not find somebody that was fishing one of the three of these, whether it was the 85, the 285, or the Long Beach 60. And the Long Beach 60 really became the mainstay of commercial boats at that time, when they had 4 rent rods and reels, or the charter boats, which had you fishing with their equipment. And the reason for that was they were so darn reliable, relatively easy to service, as you'll see, and they just kept going. The weakness on the 85 and the 285 is in the non-gear side plate, because it's a Bakelite type of a material and it's not protected. It's very easy for this thing to bang against the rail and shatter, and if that's the case, well, you're just out of luck. You'll have to go get a new side plate. I have seen folks that have crazy glued them back together, but in some cases the shattering is just so pronounced that the glue doesn't hold it. Well, that did a nice job of shining up those pieces. Let's go use that pen cleaner. Just going to do a quick squirt on that internally here, just to get the dirt off the inside. Dirt is an enemy of fishing reels, so you want to get rid of this stuff if you can. And this one's got some particularly pronounced stuff, probably old fish scales, or who knows exactly what it is, but we can get that off, clean it up, and then we can move over to that gear side plate and show you how to take care of that. And that one, interestingly enough, has got the same issue, but you can see that cleans up nicely. Go ahead and use it. The only thing I don't like about this Penn rod and reel cleaner is that it's the smell. And I'm not quite sure what's in there. I probably should read the label. I'm sure it's on the label, but I just maybe I'm just a little bit overly sensitive, but you can see what a nice job it does on the side plates here. It just does a beautiful job of cleaning it up and making it almost look new after the reel is probably 50 years old. I'll do the same thing here on the spool. This cleaner is available from mysticparts.com. It's also on Amazon and other places. I'm not hawking for them, but a lot of people ask me, where did I get it? Well, that's where you get it. All right, let's turn our attention then to the side plate here. There's 4 screws that hold this together. There's 2 screws up top that are partially threaded. That's because springs on the other side of this ride in those channels. So when you go to reinstall, make sure that you put those up top. The 2 springs below are fully threaded. I'm sorry, the 2 screws, not springs. The 2 screws are fully threaded. And you want to pay attention to those as well, just when you go to put them back in. All right, you'll notice I cupped my hand. That's because there's an anti-reverse dog behind here, and it's loaded with a spring, and if you don't pay attention, that spring flies out. So I just like to cup it and then remove this slowly, and you should find the spring, and there's the spring. It didn't shoot, it kind of just stayed in its cavity, but that's the spring. It's a coil spring. I'm going to lay that down here, grab that anti-reverse dog. We'll take those fully threaded screws there, and then I'm just going to remove that spring ever so carefully so that I have it for the reinstall. That's the spring I'm talking about. It's like a flying ant. Okay, with that done, we can remove the jack, push down on the yoke assembly, and the jack will come up. Main gear, there's 2 springs underneath there. That's where the partially threaded ones work. And we can do the same thing here from a cleaning perspective. We can wipe that down a little bit. I'm going to just use a cotton swab to get into some of those deeper cracks there. Crevices, they're not cracks. I guess crack would be if the plate was broken. And you can see it does a nice job of getting rid of the old grease all around. And it must have some kind of polish in it as well. Maybe that's what I kind of smell coming out of this. But it does a nice job. Much like the other one. Alright, we'll do the same thing on this. And I guess if you were having a little bit of an issue, you could use a kitchen scrubby pad just to kind of get in there as well. So we can use a piece of steel wool like you saw me use on the other side plate. We can use a little bit of a kitchen scrubby here, which has got a little bit of abrasiveness in it. Not terrible. And that'll take care of the cleanup part of this, and it does shine it up pretty nice. I'm going to go over to the steel wool for the top of that screw head there. And does shine it up nicely. I'll just flip that over so we don't miss what was underneath that lever. Alright, so you've watched me do the dishes now. Let's go ahead and do the mechanicals of this reel. I think this one cleans up nicely, and this one's going to ride nice too, I think, just based on what I'm seeing there from the internals of the reel. It's not gummed up or anything, but let's move on to that then. There's a little bit of just old grease on the yoke here, so I'm going to use the steel wool for that, and just a couple of little turns of that will take all of that off. You can see it'll polish nicely. It's hard to believe that this reel is the age that this reel is, which again is 50 years old. I think they stopped making these in the late 70s or 80s, but this one clearly stood the test of time. There's nothing on this. This will need grease, but I'm checking the teeth now to make sure that they're all uniform, that they're not bent or chipped or cracked. This is your anti-reverse dog. We'll show you how to put that back together. Let's pull the drag stack. I'm expecting to see the old leather washers in here, which is fine. They're just, sometimes you need a little assist there to pull them off. They've been packed down there for a while. And if you can't get these all together at once, then what you want to do is just get to the metal washer, and then the little pliers generally will help. It should come off now. There you go. And because this is a long time in servicing, we want to take the gear sleeve off. There's a little peg or a pin here that usually you can just push through. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need to take a pick like this, kind of tap it through, get it started. And you can see it got started there, and sometimes you can continue just pushing. There we go. And that'll get it out. Don't make contact with the sleeve. You can damage the threading. And if you need a little bit more, use that little pliers just to pull it out till you clear the ridge. And then you can pull the gear sleeve off, and you can take care of the dried grease on that shaft. And again, we're going to use steel wool for that. That'll clean that up. And there seems to be just a little bit of residual on the face of this as well, so let's go ahead and do that. That'll help the anti-reverse dog ride easier. Clean that up. You don't want any grit left over on the face of that metals, and then we can reinstall. So I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel Grease for this, not because it's a Penn reel, but because it's fishing reel grease. We'll go ahead and get that lube. That's kind of the way it comes from the factory. Before I reinstall this, I'm going to run a cotton swab up inside just in case there was some dried grease stuck inside that channel. There wasn't much. Go ahead and put that back on, and then we want to pull the pin back in. You might be able to just kind of tap it in. Again, don't go whacking anything there. And then you need to make sure that that pin clears that shoulder there. If it doesn't, you're not going to be able to put the main gear back. Alright, there's one more washer in here that I want to get out. This is the hard washer for the bottom of the assembly. Clean off the back of the main gear. There is one drag washer left in here. You just want to kind of slide something under there so you can get that out. Check the bottom, make sure that it's okay, which it is. Do the same thing here that you did with the other. Check all the teeth, make sure that all those cavities are clean in between, and if they are, just get a good amount of grease and make sure that this gets greased again, because it's probably been a few years since the gear has been serviced. That comes in next. Alright, there's 3 drag washers. There's 3 metal washers and a cap washer. You'll notice that there's one washer in the middle that has 2 prongs on it. That's called the eared washers. The others are called keyed washers. And that's the way they go. They go key washer, ear washer, key washer. And in between that you have your drag washers. These look fine. The thing you want to make sure with these washers is that they're flexible, that they don't crack, and then these got plenty of play left in them. It's a leather washer. You don't have to upgrade them to the HT100s. These are perfectly fine, and we just put them back out fishing again. So I'm going to use a drag washer grease. It's called Cal's Universal Drag Grease, and I'm going to put a little bit on there, and here's my gloved hand acting as a tool to get that grease spread on that washer. You wipe off any excess, and then you can put that onto the main shaft, and then the first of your keyed washers goes on. And since I had to pull these off with the pliers, it may take a little bit to get them back on. There you go. Sometimes they're a little bit more difficult because age kind of puts a spring on. We'll do that again. Smear it on both sides, wipe off any excess. Gonna put that back on, and then the one with the 2 prongs, or the eared washer, goes next. Last one of the drag washers then, one more time. Kind of rinse and repeat. We'll put that top one on. And then this is called the cap washer, and that's the last piece of your stack there. And I'm going to take a moment just to get some of that grease off my gloved hand, and then we'll be able to do the reassembly of this reel. So this reel is going to come out nice. I can tell already that it's nice. I'm just going to wipe off some of that excess cleaning stuff in there. I don't know what that was made of, but it sure did a nice job. We're going to take our brush and our grease and make sure that that side plate bearing gets some nice grease all around it. We're also going to make sure we get some grease onto the eccentric. Now we're going to get our parts for reassembly. So there's 2 springs that go under the yoke. One goes in each cavity. This is the yoke that we cleaned up. You want to make sure that you get grease onto the shoulders on both sides. This is your pinion gear. Same thing, you want to get the grease onto the pinion gear. And then note that when you go to install the pinion gear, the slot in the pinion gear faces out. That's going to accept the shoulder on the spool. There's a shoulder here, and that's what's going to turn your spool. Once we do that, then we can get the jack, push down on the assembly, make sure your eccentric prong is up. Then you can just simply slide it in place like that, and that's kind of how we found it when we started this. Alright, the bridge then is next. You want to take the bridge and insert it, and then turn it halfway so that you're holding down the pinion gear. Get the fully threaded bridge screw. There's 2 of those. They go in the bottom. In this case, if you're looking at it, it would be the bottom right hand side. If you're looking at it from the front of it, it would be the left hand side. Then it slips over, the dog slips over, and it kind of engages with the teeth here on that gear sleeve. And there's a cavity there. That's where you saw the spring. So the anti-reverse stalk spring goes in there. This is a spring. It will shoot. Be careful. I like to put it into one side first. You'll see, just like that. And then I like to just kind of compress it so that it sits like that, and that's properly loaded. Then you complete by returning the bridge to the normal position and make sure that that screw is centered. When you center that screw, then you want to take, it's about 1 or 2 turns to get it set before you go and install the other bridge screws and tighten them all down. So this is a partially threaded one. It's going up top on the other side. This is another partially threaded one. It's coming back over here. So I'm kind of going northeast, southwest on this. Then there's one more. And again, that's why that parts tray becomes so important. I can just lean over into the parts tray, grab the piece, and kind of move on. All right, when I have all 4 of them done, I can come back then and tighten these. I'm going to do the same thing. It's going to be in an X pattern. I'll make sure they're all tightened. And before I go any further, I'll spin it to make sure that everything's working properly. And last thing on the lube then, because you couldn't do that before, but you want to get grease on the face of the jack so that when it slides under the bridge like this, there's lubrication going on there. All right, that's that set, so let's go ahead and put the rest of the reel back together again. Because I've cleaned that up, I'm going to take my glove off now because that's only going to transfer all that grease that was being held on my glove. We'll go ahead and put the shiny parts back. I'm going to start with the non-gear side plate and the bridge, or the reel seat. And just like we did with the other one, don't tighten that screw all the way down until you have the other one here aligned properly. And then you can come back. And be careful on this one. Again, this is almost like a clay pigeon from a shooting standpoint. It will shatter. I don't mean to suggest that it's that fragile, but it's fragile enough. All right. And then I hand tighten these. We'll come back and tighten them up fully. Just want to get them all established first. And if you're working on the 85 or if you're working on the 60, it's all basically the same reel. Those step-by-step processes I showed you for rebuilding that gear side plate, identical. There's no difference in the parts there. There might be a difference a little bit in the components from a metal standpoint, but basically the same, nearly identical parts, and I think they're actually interchangeable. Even though I think the bridge, for example, the bridge might carry a different part number on it. You can use the one in lieu of the other if you don't have it. All right, we're just tightening those down. One more piece here from a lubing standpoint. You want to get grease into the non-gear side bearing. Get a little bit onto the click. This is a beautiful click. It's never, I'm sure whoever was fishing that never used it. Here's the back side of the spool then. We'll put a little bit of grease onto the shaft there. And insert that. Do the same thing here, get grease onto that shaft. Now I like to make sure that this is in the off position. When I go to put the side plate on, just seems to make it easier. And then we're going to do kind of like what we did with the other one here. And take a long screw for the cross post here. Get it started, don't put it all the way down yet. Take another long screw for the other side. Kind of an X pattern again, right? Then a short screw to anchor the reel seat. And then you know you have your side plate going in square. Oops. And put that in the reel seat. And then once it's square, you can fill in the blanks with the other 3 screws. So I hope you're enjoying this. If you are, I'd ask you to please subscribe if you want to see more. I post videos frequently. And if you do subscribe, please hit that notification button. That way you won't miss the reels that I do, and I do a lot of these. I've been trying to post frequently, almost daily, for the length of this pandemic, just to give some folks some entertainment, as well as kind of in thanks for the folks that are the frontline people that we addressed earlier. But yeah, please subscribe. If you like this video in particular, please like it. If you have any questions about this reel or any reel in general, If I can help you, maybe you got a reel apart and you're stuck on something, or you just want to know how a particular piece goes. Maybe you didn't take the pictures or whatever. If you give me drop me a line and use the email, or just leave it in the comments section, and I'll be happy to try and respond with you. Just cleaning up some of the grease that got transferred over there. Here's our little ferrule that goes over the gear sleeve, and I'm noticing a little bit of dirt on there, so I'm just going to, again, take that steel wool. It's not much to knock it off. And might as well just kind of get that cotton swab inside there, just in case there was any dirt. Now, if I didn't take that gear sleeve off, at this point I would put oil in here, but since I took it off and I lubed it, don't need to do that. Also notice when you put the star adjuster on, one side of the star adjuster is going to have a part number. In this case it says 1060, which tells you that 60 is the Model 60. It's the Long Beach series, but the part is on the DelMar, which kind of reinforces what I was saying before about the interchangeability of the parts. All right, and then we can grab the handle. It's a beautiful Bakelite handle there. Grab our handle screw. Grab my wrench. So this is the Allen Tanny wrench. A lot of folks wonder about this one. It's wider and longer than the original one that came with the reel. And if you do a lot of reels, I would recommend that. And then I just picked this one up, interestingly enough. This one came from Mystic Parts as well. This is from Smooth Drag, and it says it not only accommodates the Penn reels, but it does the Abu reels and Shimano reels as well. Now, if you have this one, you would be using this one here as your key. And the nice thing about this is they have better leverage. They have a longer handle than what those Penn ones do. So I'm always trying to test out some of that new stuff as well, and I like that one, and I like the versatility that it handles multiple reels. So even if you don't do a lot of Penn reels, but you've got a couple of different manufacturers' reels, that will help you. All right, just fix the tie down. Time to give it a test. So this is without the drags being on. Here's with the drags. This is a black beauty. Look at this one, huh? Now, when you go finish that, because you've put grease in both of these bearings, this spool will be tight now. So you need to back the bearing off just a little bit. You just want to get a light movement side to side, and that is enough right there, just enough. And then you'll see that this thing just spins beautifully. Throw it into the free spool, and look at the, oops, you'll see the spool. Well, again, it's such a nice reel, but you'll just see that it spins nicely. There's no noise or anything. The reel's been cleaned up. Again, we've used that Penn rod and reel cleaner for that. We've also used some steel wool and some chrome polish, an automotive chrome polish there to clean that up. And we've used the Penn lubes for this. So that is your Penn DelMar 285. That's how you service that. And if you have the Penn 85 or the Penn 60 or the Penn 65, all of these reels are serviced the same way. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, please subscribe. Please click notifications. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.